from the heart of Midland. This is the February 2016 edition of MPS Today. My name is Scott Cochran, Auxiliary Education Curriculum Specialist and host of the show. We have a great show for you today. We'll meet with a number of teachers that had an amazing experience traveling to China as part of our Midland China Educational Exchange. You'll get the latest news and notes from our schools and MPS on the move. And finally, you'll hear about that great winter tradition, the Snow Sculpture Contest. Remember that you can find all of our programming, including graduation, select athletic events, concerts, and other school activities on our YouTube site. Just go to YouTube and search for Midland Public Schools, or go to the district website, www.midlandps.org, and click the YouTube button at the top of the page. And now let's welcome our guests to the studio. We have two secondary teachers that traveled to China earlier this fall, Josh Kreiner and Kelly Murphy. Josh and Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
You bet. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves? You're both teaching at Midland High School. How long have you been there, and what do you teach? Kelly?
This is year 12 for me.
Okay.
Yes, it'll be a dozen years.
Yeah.
And I'm an English teacher. I teach IB World Lit 1, which is a junior level course, a senior class, and English 9.3.
And what do you enjoy about teaching?
I like the kids. The kids are fun. They keep every day interesting. I love teaching literature, reading literature, talking about literature.
Yeah. Well, that's good. It's a good fit then, I guess.
Absolutely.
Now, everybody, when they think about English teachers, they imagine you going out to your car with like a huge stack full of papers and staying up till 3 in the morning grading. I mean, is that tough?
That's the dream right there.
Yeah.
It is tough. It is tough, especially this time of year with exams.
We're at the end of the semester.
Yeah, but that's my life.
But it comes with the territory.
It
so
does,
you're all right.
absolutely.
All right. Josh.
Yeah, I'm Josh Kreiner. I teach social studies at Midland High. I've taught at Dow High. This is my 12th year too. I also taught in Florida for a couple years, and my favorite part about teaching is definitely the interaction with the students and getting them to see things a little differently than their narrow-minded view of life at this moment.
Sure. And what's your schedule like this year as far as classes?
I teach economics, U.S. history, and then history of the Americas, IB.
Okay, great. So you have a lot going on.
Yeah.
And I got to say, you both make me feel very comfortable at home because I'm a former English and social studies teacher myself, so we could talk about all those things for a long time. However, I think we're supposed to talk about China today. I remember hearing that. So we have a sister school in China that we've worked with for several years now. And what was your experience like when you went over there?
It was amazing. It was a very good experience.
Yeah.
Friends High School was extremely welcoming. They gave us a very good experience, very accommodating. Just very, very positive.
Now, Friends High School, where in China are we talking about?
Chongqing, China.
Okay.
It's a mouthful. It's a mountain city. There's a big river in there. The school was on top of a mountain. Huge city. Do you remember the population?
Was it 35?
It's huge.
35
million. Huge.
Wow.
Huge. Very different than Midland. We got to know the teachers when they came over here for an exchange, the exchange in October, and they were very appreciative of everything that we had. They definitely liked the blue sky. It was flat. We had space. They were very interested in the homes, things like that. But over there in China, it was just very different, but the same. Because kids are kids. It's
interesting, when we had the Chinese teachers here earlier in the fall, I drove them around a little bit from school to school, and we were driving by, I don't even want to say a farmer's field, it was just a big field, and it had a large tractor, a large lawnmower, and they were just amazed. It was just, we had to pull over and take pictures, and it wasn't even a full-size farm tractor, but it was just incredible to them to see all that open space.
We drove through some areas of China, and they were farming, but they didn't have tractors, and they were doing it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, it wasn't mechanized like that. Yeah.
Hand tools and stuff like that.
And a lot of the people that we worked with over there, a lot of them hadn't even been to other parts of the city, let alone outside of the city.
They call Chongqing the biggest city you've never heard of.
Yeah.
Because it's gigantic.
You said 35 million people.
It's huge. It's huge.
That's incredible.
Yes.
And when you were there, and I'm sure they arranged for you to do some traveling and look around a little bit, but when you were, doing the, get up in the morning and go to the school and then come back, I mean, how big was the world that you were in? In other words, how much travel how much time did it take to get there? How much of a space did you travel around?
What do you think?
Every day was a little bit different, depending on their schedule. They had us at the school, but it would take us
Maybe
at least
20 minutes.
Yeah,
It was up the mountain on narrow roads in a squeaky bus.
Yeah.
Traffic was hit or I mean, depending on what time they would try to get us out on the road after rush hour, because there were times when it would take you forever to get anywhere. But then when we were on the grounds of the school, it was pretty secluded up there.
That's the nice thing about Friends High School is it's up in the mountain, and so once you get past the city part into the mountains, there's not much up there. So driving from there, we never had much traffic.
Sure.
But it's just there in the city.
Now you said high school. Is it the same type of high school that we're picturing with Midland and Dow High, or is it how, what age level, what grades, how many
little bit
kids?
different.
It's a little different, yeah.
Yeah, they basically have 10th, 11th, and 12th grade.
Okay.
They call it year
1, 2, and 3. Senior year, 1, 2, and 3.
So they don't. 9th grade is at the middle school. Their middle school.
Okay.
Which we did go to that campus as well, and I couldn't tell you how far away it is from the high school. Maybe 10 minutes, something like that.
Okay.
And that was a newer school. Friends High School is pretty old, but it's not one building. The climate there is more like, what'd you say, like Georgia?
Small college.
It felt like temperature wise. So the rooms were very open. There's separate buildings. So for like the year 1 would be in one building, year 2 would be in another building, year 3 is in another building. Open windows, open doors.
About how many students per grade level, and about how many students in each class? I mean, roughly.
Okay, we can know class
There's
sizes.
60 kids per class. in
Wow,
every
so double
class.
our size, really.
Yes, in about the same size classroom. So it's very crowded, and then those students are in that classroom all day long.
So the teachers
The teachers
rotate through.
move, and the classes are 40 minutes long, and then they have breaks, well, at least a 10-minute break between the classes.
Yes.
And then they have, so they start their day. They have certain ceremonies in the morning on certain days. They all have their warming up exercises that they do that you would picture them doing, all synchronized motions.
Calisthenics and things.
They have classes, and then they have lunch, and then they have this 2.5-hour rest period at mid-afternoon, where they literally are with their heads on their desks taking naps. They don't go back to their dorms because it is a boarding school.
Okay.
And then after that, they resume classes, and then they eat dinner, and then they have classes in the evening. So it's quite different. They don't have the extracurricular activities that we do to take that time in the afternoon like we do, nor do they go home. They don't see their family except on the weekend. And yeah, the classes stay together all day long for that entire year, and then for the next 2 years they're looped with the same teachers and the same students.
So they're both the same group of 60
Yeah.
students and the same teachers for 3 years.
Real big sense of community.
Another big difference too is they have all students take English, Chinese, and math. And then they can choose 2 different categories. They can either choose science, where they take physics, chemistry, all that, or they can do arts, which is basically social studies classes. And so they branch off in that route too.
And what was your impression of their English capabilities?
There was certainly a range.
Right.
We interacted mostly with students who were exceptional.
Okay.
Exceptional.
But once in a while you would go and try and talk to other students.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as good.
Much like our
Okay.
foreign language, where you have, you can read it, but it's more difficult to speak it.
Sure.
We would see that for sure.
And even more difficult to follow somebody talking. It always seems like it's so fast, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And they had a English school within the school. So there was a group of students who were exceptional
Like a
English
club.
students.
Oh, okay.
And so that's a lot of our interaction was with them.
Now, did you get the sense, you said it's a boarding school. I mean, did you get the sense that these were, we hear a lot about other countries where in our public education system we educate everybody, we do it in the same facilities, all different kinds of ranges of abilities and interest levels and all those things. Many other countries in Europe and certainly in the Far East, China and Japan, we hear about, I don't want to use the word segregation, but a separation, if you will.
Yeah.
And did you see that
Yes.
as well?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Your test scores, and everything is about tests there.
You don't make it to the high
test.
school unless you're at the top.
Exactly. And then
academically.
every school this is the number 1 school in Chongqing, this is the number 6 high school in Chongqing, things like that. So it depended on your score, pretty much
Right.
really determined what school you would go to. And for us, We see our students as more than just a score, more than just their score in the ACT or the SAT. We know that, and colleges see them as more than that too. So we, I think, give much more well-rounded education.
Right.
Whereas,
well,
to a degree,
right.
but at least
Because
we
their
encourage
students,
things.
The ones that go to high school are expected to go to college.
Yeah.
The ones that don't go to high school, a lot of them go to a trade school, or they go off to work in a career where they're like an apprentice.
Sure.
So it's
They
not,
receive training in a different way.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not like they're just abandoned.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But there is a system. So.
But when people do like to compare U.S. student scores to other student scores,
Right.
and it wouldn't be.
It's not apples to apples.
It's not apples to
No,
apples
it's not
comparison.
apples
That's
to
a good way to
apples.
put it, right?
It is
It's
not
like-
apples to apples.
Sure. It's like taking your top performers and comparing them to somebody else's, all students.
And their only focus is how they perform on their college entrance exam.
Right.
That is the only thing that matters.
it's almost
there
like
are
a
so many
3-year
people-
training to-
It is, and the last year, that entire year 3, is just preparation for that. That's what they do, practice tests, review. They didn't get to participate in some of the fun things that we got to do, as the whole school was doing, because they were focused on that.
Their training. And did you find that I mean, when you had a chance to interact with some of the students, were they planning on going to Chinese schools? Were they planning on traveling to Europe or the U.S.? I mean, was there a range?
Most of them wanted to go to American universities, not just because of the prestige of some of our schools, but also they just wanted to come to the United States because they hear so much about it and
Sure.
see movies and all kinds of stuff like that. So.
Yeah. But they definitely promote the top universities around the world.
Right.
They have posters everywhere around the
Okay.
school that have those.
Cambridge,
Yeah.
Harvard.
So they're setting those as the goal for their
Yes.
students as they're preparing them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Did you, when you were outside of the school, what was it like? I mean, what was your experience?
Being a history teacher, one of the things that
Yeah.
I liked the most is we went to a Japanese occupation museum, which was really a Chiang Kai-shek's compound during World War II.
Okay.
And they preserved all his buildings.
Wow.
And so we got to go in and we got to see all his stuff, his wife's stuff, the battle plans. It was really,
That's
That was
fascinating.
it was interesting.
Yeah.
So that was a huge takeaway for me. And then as far as the other side of being a social studies teacher, just seeing the socioeconomic aspect of everything was very interesting. They are definitely a capitalist country. They're not a communist
Yeah.
country anymore, but with the same time an authoritarian government. And so just being able to tell kids when we're studying different countries, and obviously China in this case, actual stories from what I saw, it will go a long way with my teaching, I think.
Sure.
Absolutely. We stuck out like sore thumbs,
Okay.
and people took lots of pictures of us.
Okay.
So we felt like celebrities a little bit because
paparazzi
they don't
traveling.
have the diversity.
Yeah.
So we definitely we stood out. So that was interesting, and people wanting to take pictures with us. The kids from Bay City Western who went, they were very popular. People like to take pictures of them, but people were very kind.
The food was very different than
Yes.
I
Yeah.
thought.
Not American Chinese food.
It wasn't like going to one of the restaurants here in town.
No.
Yeah.
No,
It's
but
very spicy.
and they gave us a lot of it. They
Yeah.
just would bring out a lot of food.
We never ate everything that
No,
they brought.
no. But it was good. The people were just very kind. Yeah.
Talk about what you learned there that has changed or impacted your own teaching. Anything stand out in that way?
Definitely collaborating more with my colleagues.
Sure.
They make a big emphasis of
Okay.
doing that. And I think it's valuable. You know, we all have our strengths and weaknesses that we can help each other with. I think the other thing too is really emphasizing my students that you're not competing against American students. When we were going through high school, we were told, you know, you're competing against everyone in the country. Well,
Yeah.
they're competing against everyone in the world now.
Sure.
And the Chinese students take it very serious. You know, they want to be successful. So it's a good thing to, you know, be able to tell our kids and say I saw it firsthand.
Absolutely. Kelly, how about for you?
I agree. They do something really interesting where they have at Friends High School, they have essentially a classroom set up at the front of an auditorium, and they will have teachers come in and teach their class in that auditorium with other teachers from not only the school but from schools around them watching, so you can learn from their best practice. And I know we have an increased emphasis and encouragement to go watch our peers teach, which can be a challenge. That room was really cool to do it in. Josh actually got to teach a lesson in there. Nice. But it's just reflective, to have that reflective practice and to get feedback, but also to learn some tricks and tips from some good teachers.
Some other professionals doing the same thing you're doing. Absolutely. That sounds awesome. Well, that's very neat. Well, Josh Kreiner and Kelly Murphy, thank you very much for coming in to share your experiences in China, and we'll look forward to seeing how it continues to impact your teaching here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you bet. Well, coming next, we'll meet the elementary teachers that traveled to China. So stick around for more MPS Today right after this.
Morning, Gary. We are GetSchooled.com. You want a college education, don't you?
You know you do. Yeah, but I don't know where to start.
That's why we're here. We're free, handsome,
I think we're breathtaking.
and here to guide you through every step of the way, starting with attendance. Gary, financial aid forms. Biology homework, G. I got this. Is that brand? Colleges love extracurricular activities.
Chess really isn't my thing.
I got this. Doesn't matter. Go ahead. Picking a college, man. You and us go together like tacos and Tuesday.
And I love tacos.
Fire and ice.
Those don't really go together. Go to GetSchooled.com for more info.
Hi, may I please have an application? Thank you.
Skip the drama. Get your diploma.
Okay.
Take that first step towards a better future. Find free adult education classes at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome back to MPS Today. We're here with our elementary teachers that had the opportunity to travel to China this past October. So please join me in welcoming to the studio our next guests. So we have Rebecca Faust, Lynn Tolfa, Sarah Cooper, and Jamie Reed. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bet. Now to start out, now you teach all over the district. So Rebecca, you're over at Chestnut Hill. We have Woodcrest represented, Carpenter, East Lawn. Tell us a little bit about what you teach, how long you've been in the district, and all that kind of good stuff. Rebecca?
I teach kindergarten at Chestnut Hill.
Okay.
I've been in the district 19 years, but this is my 31st year teaching. And I've taught mostly kindergarten, but also first grade, second grade, and third grade.
So you're really kindergarten, early elementary focus. And what do you enjoy about teaching that age?
Their curiosity and their love for life.
There's a lot of energy in that
A
classroom.
lot of energy, a lot of energy. But they're just so curious about everything.
Yeah.
It's the one job that you can go to and you know every day is going to be different.
Sure.
They love me no matter what.
Yeah,
So
that's nice. Lynn, how about you?
I've been with the district for 27 years, and the last 13 have been in kindergarten, but I've taught second and third grade as well. And again, I ditto Rebecca, because the kindergarten child is so enthusiastic and curious about anything. You give them a writing folder, and it's the first time they've had one, so they love that. They're excited with anything you do, and with our PYP, we are really feeding that curiosity and lots of engagement happening, so it's
That's great.
a great age.
It is.
It's a great age to teach.
I have a first grader at home, and, among other ages too. But it was really fascinating to me to hear him talk. He brought home some slime from school. They made slime in science class, and I heard this as he walked through the kitchen. I'm going to put the slime in. I'm going to be an inquirer. I'm going to see what happens when the slime freezes. And he put it in the freezer and walked away. And I was like, oh, okay. Using that PYP language at home. I thought, how cool is that? So thank you for that sort of thing. So we appreciate it. Sarah, how about you?
I've been in the district about 9 years.
Okay.
I've taught last couple years first grade. I've done second grade, and I got my start here in the district doing 8th grade math.
Yeah.
And I also did reading recovery at that time, so I've kind of been all over
You've
age-wise.
done a lot of different things.
Yes.
And first grade's kind of been a home for you now.
Yeah, for the last couple of years.
Yeah. And how do you like? And what do you enjoy most about teaching? Or
You know, the thing, especially with the young kids, is it's just fun to see how much they can grow in a year. It's, you know, especially for the first graders, they come in barely reading, they finish reading chapter books. It's a big year of growth, and it's fun to see them get excited about learning and want to be at school.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Even just to reflect, we're about at the semester break now, and how different your students are now compared to when they started, right?
Yep.
All right. Jamie.
I teach third grade at Eastlawn. This is my 12th year in the district. And I've taught also second grade, fourth grade, and first grade, actually. So I've been kind of all over the place, but I've been in third grade for a while now.
And you hear people talk about lower elementary and upper elementary. You're truly kind of right in the middle. So what's that like?
Yeah, kind of what Rebecca and Lynn said. You know, third graders are still curious, but they're more independent. And so I really love that age. I think they are curious about things, and they take what they learn, and they can go to that next level with it. They'll go home and do, you know, further exploring on their own and bring that back. So
sure, neat. Well, let's talk about China. So we have this sister city, Chongqing, China, and we hosted teachers earlier this year in the district from there. We also had students that visited in Bay City and Saginaw, and then in October, you had the chance to go to China with some other teachers, and I know that we had some students from other districts that went, and our students had a chance to go a few years ago, right? So what was that like? I mean, it must have been an amazing experience.
It was fabulous.
Yeah. It was incredible. We were very, very welcomed by the teachers, by the children. They really spent a great deal of time with us. Answering many of our questions and really helping us to gain some insight into their day and into their culture.
So tell us about the school that you two went to the same place, right? Okay, so what was that?
That was an early childhood center. There were 3-year-olds to 5-year-olds, and they were there all day. Some had breakfast there, lunch and dinner, and they slept for 2.5 hours during the day. So did the teachers.
So what time did their day start and what time did it finish then?
Started at 8:30, and then they left at 5:30. 5:30. I think they served dinner at 5.
But early afternoon, they had kind of a break time to refresh.
And their teachers shared a classroom, so there were 2 teachers and what we would call parapro in one classroom, and one teacher taught in the morning, and then the other teacher would go to the workroom and she would do her planning. And then they would switch in the afternoon. And I'm not sure if it was exactly morning, afternoon, but they would switch throughout the week.
So they were team teaching, but essentially one teacher with the students at a time.
Right.
And about how many students in the class?
It ranged from 28 to 35.
So a little bit bigger, about the same or a little bit bigger than what we do.
Yeah.
And would you say that the content was similar to the type of content that your students were learning in kindergarten? Or?
I would say no.
No, not the 5-year-old, no. It was more exploration and guided play. Very little writing and reading.
They had typically just what we saw was one lesson for the morning, and so that would be one academic lesson, whether it was math, reading, and then the rest of the morning was outside, but very organized exercise.
Very guided.
So very guided, and we didn't see any story time, but I think later on in the afternoon they explored books a little bit on their own. But yes, I would say it was very different than what our children do in kindergarten.
Would you say it was more structured or less structured?
Well, it was structured in the sense that it was guided, but it wasn't as academic as ours. So
interesting. Yeah, you know, and you've both seen the pendulum shift in education. In any area of study, I would suppose that things change, they go one way and then they come back the other way. But we all know that things that we used to teach in second and first grade, we're now teaching in first grade and kindergarten, right? And we see that push happening more and more. It's interesting.
And in China, they're not doing that. I think at the younger ages, they're going a little bit slower, but then at the high school, it was, wow, it was such, such pressure.
And we were talking about that with the high school teachers. So it's more of a college preparatory environment and more of a test preparation environment almost, as opposed to an exploration and learning.
Where the kindergarten was very appropriate for the age. I mean, you know, they were loving. They called them babies. They're babies.
Yes.
And it's just there was no push to academic push.
Right.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit with Sarah and Jamie. So, what kind of school did you go to, and what did you notice?
Well, we got kind of lucky. We went to 6 different elementary schools.
Okay, so you
2 different districts. The one district we went to 5 schools, and the one we went to just 1. They range from 1st grade to 6th grade. Usually, like 1,000, 1,200 kids in the
big schools.
In schools, and each school had a different focus.
Okay.
So some were like
what would the focus be?
Basketball, art,
science,
culture.
Did you
chess.
guys say were students or families choosing, or kids assigned, or?
It's kind of
it's a school-wide focus is what it
and the kids usually it's still kind of district based, like where you live determines
Okay.
and elementary wise it changes after 6th grade. You take your test that picks what middle school you could get into,
Right.
but elementary is still kind of where you live is where you go.
So elementary is more neighborhood focused, if you will, residential area focused.
Yes.
And then explore on that. Like, we heard from the high school teachers how at the end of middle school you take exams, and if you do really well, then you're in the top 3rd or whatever it might be, then you move into the high school, which is completely college preparatory, sole focus on preparing for that. And what I hear you saying at the elementary level, it's at the end of the elementary level, it's somewhat similar. You take an exam, and that determines how academically focused your middle school will be. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Right.
that's my understanding. Yeah. Sarah and I had the opportunity to meet a young boy whose American name was Chuck. He was a 6th grader. We actually got to go to his house and have dinner. And he kept telling us how busy he was all of the time. We were there on a Friday night, and we said, "Oh, you must be, so thankful that it's the weekend." And he said, "Oh no, I don't get to do any type of play." He had so many studies to do. I mean, even at a young age that starts. And we said, "Oh, well, then you must really enjoy your summers." And he also said, "No, I'm always learning." He's taking classes, and his teachers send homework home. And so yeah, even at a very young age, they're already preparing for what middle school they will get into, and then what high school they eventually want.
So it's interesting to hear you say that. You talk about kindergarten, where it was much more of a guided play, focus, and not necessarily as academic, but seemed to be very age appropriate. And then this it sounds like, I don't want to say pressure, but a very focused preparation.
I'm trying to think what grade, because to me 1st and 2nd still seems kind of on par to our 1st and 2nd academic wise. But I think 3rd grade they start picking up the English, and I think that's when it starts to start picking up their pace, and they start accelerating through the material faster.
Okay, and you saw lots of different classrooms and lots of different schools. Yeah. Can you give us a sense on roughly, how large were the classrooms? Did students stick with the same teacher all day, or from year to year? What was that like?
Yeah, there's about 50. I would say about
50.
50 is the average for students in a classroom.
Okay, that's
and yes, they stay with their same group.
Yep,
so
if
there's 10 sections of 3rd grade, it's 3rd grade class 1, 3rd grade class 2, and they usually stay with them year after year.
So they'll cycle through, if it's a 1st through 5th or 6th grade experience,
Yep.
they'll be with the same students.
But they teach only one subject, so I would be just a math teacher, I would be just an English teacher, just a Chinese teacher. And you loop with the kids, unless you're a new teacher. The new teachers only loop for a couple years and then start over.
Okay. So the student, I'm trying to get a sense of the structure. So the students will stay together as they go from year to year, and the teachers will stay with them too, but they'll have teaching specialists. They'll have a math teacher, and language teacher, and science teacher, and that sort of thing.
Yep.
Interesting. And then the big exams were towards the end of 6th grade. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And what was your sense about their kind of affect? I mean, how did they feel about school? Was it very quiet in the classroom? Was it boisterous? Tell us about that.
Well, what I noticed, they really don't have behavior problems like we do. At the young level, they were squirrely and noisy, and they're 3, 4, 5, 6. But really, they are taught respect, and the teachers never had to raise their voices, or sometimes we clap or turn off the lights, and they didn't seem to have to do that. But it was not quiet at our...
No, kids are kids. I think we expected them to be quiet because when the teachers were here, they commented that our classrooms were so noisy. And so I think Rebecca and I, when we went into the kindergarten, we thought, oh, it's going to be so quiet. But it wasn't.
And it wasn't.
It was, the kids were just like our kids in terms of
the elementary is
excitability.
a little different. At times they were super quiet, where like, because they don't really collaborate at all. There's no opportunity to work in partners or small groups. So they really usually sit quietly and listen and respond back to the teacher.
Yeah, the teacher walks in and they're completely silent. I mean, to get 50 kids completely silent is amazing, and they're quiet, and the teacher comes in and they bow, they stand up and they bow to the teacher, and then he or she just gets started with the lesson. And for the most part, the kids are, you know, sitting straight up in their chairs and they're attentive and listening. We did see a science lesson one day though, where they got to work with some partners, and it was the same as what we would see, you know, chit-chatty and.
But I think the other thing too, you know, that they're trying to change is they know that they're a little more rigid, and so they're trying to push what they call happiness classes. They're trying to make kids smile more. I think they realize that they were almost a little too strict and too rigid, and so they're trying to emerge that in like cooperative learning classes, working together more, kind of trying to emulate us a little bit and how we kind of let kids be more creative and work in groups.
You know what's interesting is if you were going to go back a few years and say, what's the stereotypical vision of American schools compared to schools in, say, China or Japan and the East? And I think what you would hear a lot was that strengths of American schools are creativity and helping students explore different ideas. Maybe you have somebody who's incredible at math, and somebody else is a great artist, and somebody else who's, you know, a scientist, or those sort of things, are great in history. And whereas in China it would be, you know, more of an all-around academic high flyer, but who is more rote learning and kind of rigid. And that would have been the stereotypical view a few years back. And I know the way we view American education is changing a little bit. How do you think the Chinese view Chinese education is? What do you think, based on what you saw and when you were talking with teachers, what do you think they viewed as their strengths and their areas? I hear you talking about them trying to get students to enjoy it more. But what do you think they viewed as their strengths and areas to grow? How's that for a
you know, but I think I truly think they feel they do the academics well. They're pushing kids. They know they're expecting.
Kind of rote basic skills.
I think they, in their minds, they think that's the right pace. Everything, you know, their expectation is something they would view as a strength.
And I think in the kindergarten, their nurturing environment, I think they would view that as a strength. They're very nurturing, and they're very, you know, sensitive.
It's not something you traditionally would hear.
No,
right?
no.
See.
Yeah.
Well, and one of our interpreters said the Chinese teach a lot of knowledge, but their kids can't think. And the Americans teach a lot of thinking, but they don't know a lot of knowledge. That is what she interpreted. That was her perception.
Interesting. Well, based on what you saw and experienced, have you found it impacting your teaching in any way? Or you're thinking about education in any way? Jamie?
Yes and no. I mean, one thing that Sarah and I got to see at the elementary level was the structure of how their day was set up. The kids would have like a 45-minute or a 50-minute lesson, and then they always received a 10-minute break. They'd get to go outside and do basically whatever they wanted. It was structured. They had choices, but and then they would go back and have another 45-minute lesson. And I think the thing that kind of really struck with us is, you know, we require our students to sometimes stay focused for, you know, 2 or 3 hours at a time. And so we really, really liked how they gave them, you know, breaks and options to, you know, kind of get out of their seat. And not that our students don't get up and move around a lot, but just, you know, require them to do a lot of thinking for a long period of time. So I know that we had definitely talked about when we came back, you know, we were going to try to give them more frequent breaks to see if it would help in the long run. So.
Yeah.
In the kindergarten, too, they had a lot of movement throughout the morning.
Which seems very age appropriate, doesn't it?
Which it was, yeah.
Well, and K-12 start their day with movement. Everybody,
100%.
K-12 starts with movement, which I think is a very interesting.
Well, there's a lot of research to support that that's a good idea.
And it's not gym, it's movement, and everybody has to do it.
It's kind of like a choreographed dance. It's like a dance kind of.
It was one of my favorite parts
we
of the
love
day
doing that.
to be able to see 10 o'clock, 1,200 students would file out onto this outside field, and they had been taught kind of a choreographed dance or exercise routine, and just everybody doing the same thing. It just brought a lot of unity, I think, to the school.
And it's not like recess where some people sit or maybe somebody reads a book. No, everybody has to move. So it was, at the kindergarten level, it was very rote. They did the same thing, a lot of government songs. And
Now that would fit with what we'd expect to see.
Yeah.
based
Right.
on our kind of
Right.
stereotypical
Right.
vision,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Okay.
I like stuff.
And every school in China, from what we understand, starts with a flag raising ceremony on Monday mornings. And so they dress in a military uniform, the little costume, the little kids, and they make a big deal of marching their flag and
National anthem.
in the anthem and singing
some
songs,
songs.
country songs. Yeah.
So it wouldn't have necessarily surprised our visiting Chinese teachers to see our students do the Pledge of Allegiance. And
No, yeah, no.
that would kind of fit with what they were familiar with, it sounds like. Interesting. Well, let's talk about your overall trip. Tell us about something that surprised you. I mean, I'm not necessarily talking about in school now. You were there all day and all night, so for several weeks. So what is something that surprised you, or something that you always remember, or something that you enjoyed? I mean, what was...
Well, I think initially we were kind of surprised. We got stopped a lot, or looks. Jamie and I, anywhere we went, people wanted our picture. Oh, let's take a group picture with you. Add a new person, a group picture with you. I mean, all the time. So that was kind of different. But, for me, you were just treated so well. Every kid would come up to you. They're all trained to really say hello to everyone, goodbye, nice to meet you. So you felt very welcome there, even though you were thousands and thousands of miles away from what you're used to.
Yeah, I just took away the fact that they love Americans. I mean, I've never been treated, like royalty almost while I was there. Just you could tell that they had been preparing for weeks for our arrival. They always had some kind of a special ceremony or assembly when we got there. They would, Sarah and I brought home tons of gifts from students and teachers. Just an overall sense of just welcoming. It was great.
And in Chongqing, it's not a very international city, so they're not used to seeing Americans.
What is something that happened, Lynn, that you always remember that you thought was surprising?
Well, I think I was really overwhelmed with the hospitality. I mean, they were just so wanting to take care of us and make sure that we were comfortable, make sure we had what we needed. And as Jamie and Sarah said, they did a goodbye ceremony for just Rebecca and myself too. I mean, it was just very sweet and thoughtful. And besides the city, it was so different. I had never been to anywhere in Asia, so that was it was just very different. The different vehicles, the different, food. The food was memorable.
Yeah. In what way?
Spicy.
In Chongqing, in maybe all parts of China, but I can only speak for there, they eat every part of the animals in the soup. The chicken head with the beak and the eye,
the duck head,
the feet,
The duck head.
Yeah, so that was different. So we could understand them. We could appreciate when the Chinese teachers were visiting here. They had a difficult time with the food, so we could appreciate that.
Yeah, I do remember hearing that when they were visiting.
And our food was bland for them, where
theirs wasn't.
theirs was not.
Well, they
Theirs
said
was
they did
not.
take it down a couple notches for the
they-
sake of us.
They were
which,
trying
thank
to,
goodness.
yes.
But it was still spicy.
It was still spicy.
Yeah, it's what you're used to, right?
Yeah,
It
it's
makes a
all
big
what you're
difference.
used to, but
Right.
they were happy to share it with. They really wanted us to.
Yeah.
They're very proud of their food. Very
And their
much
city,
so.
very
and their
proud.
Well,
city.
even their traditions. I mean, we saw so many different traditional. This is a traditional Chinese game. We made dumplings several times because it's traditional,
famous.
for things. Yeah, famous for that. Or
Yeah.
we went to art classes, calligraphy, just to see all the traditional things they do.
So there's a real sense of pride in their culture, it sounds like.
And in their country.
Yeah.
Sure, of course.
Well, and it's an old, very old
Right.
country, and there's a lot of history, and they seem to know a lot about their country. They really do.
Well, it sounds like a pretty amazing experience for you.
It was.
And I know this
Incredible.
exchange, what's that?
I said it was incredible.
It was incredible, awesome. And this exchange has been going on for a few years now. Like I said, a few years back we sent over some teachers and students, and now we've had a chance to host, and we hosted teachers and students then and again this year. So hopefully this is the kind of experience we'll be able to continue to offer our students and teachers. And thank you for being willing to go. To be away for a couple of weeks is a big deal. We're very appreciative you had that experience, and hopefully it informs your teaching in a different way here too. So thank you. Thanks for being here. So Sarah and Jamie and Lynn and Rebecca, thank you very much for talking with us today.
Thank you.
You bet. Well, up next is the February edition of MPS On the Move, and later we'll learn about the snow sculpture contest. So stick around for more MPS Today right after this.
Calls me googly eyes.
You know you're beautiful, right? You know that?
Even you are beautiful. I got bullied for wearing glasses. Share if you're against bullying.
We put it out there, just took off. 3 million people have shared this post. Don't let bullies get you down. I stand with you. The whole family's wearing glasses. I wear glasses and I'm proud.
I even have the army on my team.
All the kind comments brought my child joy. I don't feel thank you is enough.
Thanks.
Hello, and welcome to the February 2016 edition of MPS On the Move. In today's show, we'll learn about the new STEM elementary school, STEM programs throughout the district, bond project updates, school safety training, the success of our future leaders at the high schools, and kindergarten enrollment. We'll start off with the new STEM elementary school. You already know that our students are receiving a new elementary school thanks to your support of the bond proposal. Now, in even more exciting news, thanks to the support of local foundations, we are able to upgrade that school with many new STEM tools. This will make it an even more effective learning space for our students as they enter today's highly competitive world. So for details on the STEM elementary and pictures like these here, check out the detailed designs, the school layout, and architectural renderings, which are all available on our district website. And as you know, that website is www.midlandps.org. Now, other STEM news. The official robotics season has begun. Our teams at both Dow High School and Midland High School are working to develop the robots to compete in the 2016 competition, which is titled First Stronghold. The robots will have to work in alliances of 3 to capture enemy towers. We'll have a competition here in Midland from March 17th through the 19th, so be on the lookout for more information as the dates approach, and good luck to both teams. Now, this activity, the First Robotics Competition, it's a great opportunity for our students to put to work their skills in engineering, computer programming, welding, machining, and many other areas. School safety. Have you ever wondered what our teachers do during the PD days? Well, on February 12th, during the Teacher PD Day, all MPS teachers and administrators will receive critical incident management training. They will learn about how to deal with many difficult situations, including bomb threats, lockdowns, secure modes, and much more. Now, just watching the news can be scary these days, and we hope that we will never need to use this information. But we do want to be equipped and ready if necessary. Now, Midland's future leaders. Great news to report from the Dow High School DECA Club and the Midland High School BPA, Business Professionals of America Club. Both teams prepare students for success in a variety of competitions, from marketing to computer programming to business development and much more. Now, both recently competed at their regional competitions, and the returns were great. We had 76 Dow High School DECA students that qualified for the state competition, and 44 Midland High School BPA students qualified for their state competition. We wish all students luck as they work at the states and work to qualify for the national finals. And finally, kindergarten enrollment. Believe it or not, kindergarten enrollment for the 2016-17 school year is underway. For more information on how to enroll in your local school, check out our district website, and you can click on the building links at the top of the page. Or you can call your local school at the numbers listed here. No matter which school neighborhood you live in, be it Adams, Carpenter, Chestnut Hill, East Lawn, Plymouth, Siebert, or Woodcrest, your student will receive an excellent education, and we're excited to work with you to help you get started. Well, that's our show for now. We'll see you next time on MPS On the Move.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund Reading.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Information on hot water heating.
No. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out the words.
World music, playing track now.
No.
Let me try. Our daughter gets confused about which details in a story are important.
Which paper towels are most absorbent?
What?
Here are 5 product reviews.
Why are you not getting me?
See, I told you.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
For the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues, this is what life can feel like. Explore understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues, designed to help your child thrive in school and in life. Understood.org, because understanding is everything.
Welcome back to MPS Today. We're here with teacher Kurt Gledhill and Dow High School student Kaylee Harmer to learn about the snow sculpture contest. So, Mr. Gledhill and Kaylee, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Now, let's start off with Mr. Gledhill. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do here in the district and how long you've been doing it?
Okay, I am in my 4th year as an art teacher at Dow High School. My 18th year of teaching in the Midland system as an art teacher. So I was at Northeast for my first 14 years of my career, and then Dow High for the last 4. And I've been doing the snow sculpture contest for probably 10 years, something like that.
Okay. And Kaylee, how about you? We know you're at Dow High School.
Mm-hmm.
What year are you?
I'm a senior currently. Okay. This was my first year being in the snow sculpture contest, and I enjoyed it a lot. Afterwards, I have plans to go to SVSU for nursing.
All right, good. And you've been in art, you weren't in art classes this year, but you said you had art classes last several years.
I had art class last year and the year before that as well, and although I don't have a class this year for art, I do like to invade his classroom fairly often.
Yeah. All right, good. Well, Mr. Gledhill, let's talk a little bit about the snow sculpture contest. Tell us about who competes, you know, how it's organized, and how that day unfolds.
Yeah. So the contest is open to all secondary schools in Midland County. And so middle schools and high schools from Bullet Creek System, Meridian System, Coleman System, and Dow High and Midland High are all invited. Sometimes schools will send 3 teams that are available from each school, and sometimes they'll just send 1 or 2 depending on what kids are available and timing and whatever else. Schools do it differently as far as picking the groups. Some schools will allow the students to form their own teams, and then they compete for a spot on the team, and other schools pick it by individuals and then combine the teams from those kids that have put forth the interest in the effort. So
now you said teams. How many students are in a typical
3 or
team?
4 is typical. And every once in a while we'll have some odd thing will happen. Somebody got sick, or like this year we had to reschedule the snow sculpture and the second date didn't work for everybody. So I know we had at least 2 teams that were only 2 kids, but they still did really well at the competition. So.
And help us understand, we'll get some pictures on the screen here in a minute, but snow sculpture, we're not talking tabletop size, right? No. We're talking
generally they're the size of about a Volkswagen Bug when you're done. You know, they're somewhere around 4 to 5 feet tall and usually 6 to 8 feet long in one direction and maybe 4 feet the other direction. The kids obviously can move the snow around once they get there, but when they walked up to the piles, they were somewhere around 4 foot tall, about 8 foot long, and about 4 feet deep.
Now, how long does it take to work with? I mean, when you're trying to imagine what you're going to do, how long does it take to create a sculpture out of something that large?
We had a lot of time to work with it. It was harder at the very start of the morning because obviously it had been really cold the night before, so it was a big chunk of ice. So we all had to start hacking at our ice pile and try to figure out how to thaw it. I was odd enough to bring a baseball bat, so we tried using that. Other people had shovels or chisels or whatever they came. After a while, when you use a hose and it starts to become like a easy to use slush, it was a lot easier, and when people started rolling, it just kind of escalated, and the next thing you know, you have these wonderful sculptures.
Because it warmed up pretty quickly.
Yeah, it warmed up pretty quickly.
Yeah, the weather is always a challenge for this contest, right? You mentioned we had to go to the backup date.
Yeah, so the first date that we had planned, it was actually in the 40s and raining for a couple of days before that, and warm above freezing. And we were at City Forest this year for the first time, which was nice because they were able to make our snow. The drawback is if you're not below freezing, then they can't make any snow, and so we were kind of hung up from that. So once we had the temperatures drop, which then happened the following week, then they were able to make the snow for us and move us into that secondary date. And it was very successful once we had everything put together.
And this was the first year that we'd had the contest out at the City Forest. So
That's
talk
correct.
about that a little bit.
Yeah, so they approached me actually just before the contest last year, which has always been down at the Farm Market Circle. And it's always been great down there. The city's been very good. H Hotel was very good. Everybody was really welcoming of us down there. But there were always challenges of having it down there. And so the city approached me last year and just suggested that we would go it out to City Forest, where we've already got the snow hill and the ability to make the snow. And there were just a lot of factors that seemed to make sense. And so we kind of put the details together over the last year, and everything came together and it worked out really well.
Good. Well, let's talk a little bit more about, Kaylee, your team and what you all created. You probably had something in mind before you showed up.
Before, when we were getting our team together, we made a small clay model of what our major idea was. And for some reason, we all came up with the idea of like a sloth riding a narwhal. But we quickly realized that you can't make a narwhal that easily out of ice and snow, because how are you going to do the horn? And it was just really awkwardly shaped. So then we came up with the idea, like, we want to keep the sloth, because why not have a sloth? So it became Slothzilla, where it was terrorizing a small town. When we got to the snow sculpture site, obviously we had to move the amount of snow and work with the ice. So we had to alter the design ever so slightly with what we had there. So instead of a whole bunch of small buildings, we made one giant skyscraper, which the sloth was attacking. So when you were there, you had to really change your plans and work with what you had.
Well, that's interesting. So when you were developing your initial plan, working with the clay model helped you figure out that the narwhal in this case was probably kind of difficult.
It wouldn't work that well.
And then once you had a plan in place that you thought was going to work, you still had to adapt and adjust. Did your group do okay with that? Were there a lot of arguments? Or you kinda came to
Our group did pretty okay with it, because when we started working, it seemed like each of us claimed a small portion of what we'd be working on. Like at the very start, I helped by hollowing out the two separate mounts. So we had the building and we had the sloth, and someone else worked on helping with the anatomy and helping make the legs and the head and the shapes right. So we all started working together, and then on occasion we'd swap. So then I'd take a look at the back and put what I thought in. So in the end, the sculpture was really like all of us contributing into one giant project instead of people putting their individual pieces on it.
Yeah, so it wasn't three separate projects that happened to be together. You're all working together. Mr. Gledhill, talk about that a little bit. I'm sure sometimes everything goes just perfectly, but probably a lot of times students have to adapt and adjust.
Yeah. The dynamics, anytime you're working with anybody, students or adults, it doesn't make any difference. You've got to be able to work together and compromise. And there were teams that worked like clockwork and came in there with a plan and were able to execute their plan very smoothly. Even Kaylee's group, even though they ran into their problems as far as dealing with the snow and changing their design, they worked very seamlessly in making those changes. There wasn't one person whose idea was different and they abstained from the others. You know, it was very, worked really well together. But there were teams that struggled quite a bit. So that's one of the reasons why I'm there, and also Dana's out there from Bullet Creek. And we walk around the different piles and we kind of listen to see what's happening and throw in suggestions. And so there were teams that just weren't working together, and you'd walk by and the kids are all just sitting on the pile and they look frustrated. And so you kind of walk through and, okay, what are you struggling with and how can I help you? And most of them just kind of needed that encouragement to get over the hump, so to speak, and move forward with their plan. And just needed another voice sometimes to kind of break the stalemate.
Now, speaking from an art teacher perspective, what do you think students can learn through an activity like this that they wouldn't necessarily learn doing sculpture or pottery or 2D or other things in a more controlled classroom setting?
Right. As a sculpture, the medium of snow is great because it's so malleable. Like, they can change the shape pretty directly, with the exception that it's solid ice sometimes. But if you don't like the way something looks, you can pull it off. If you want to add, you just grab some snow and add it on. So as far as that goes, it's a lot like clay. It's not like carving stone where you come in and you have to just keep chipping away and end up with something that's left. And so it's a little bit nicer medium that way. As far as the thought process that goes through it, that's really, as a teacher, what I embrace of the whole activity, because the students come in and they, like Kaylee said, they had to look at the pile that they had and make a decision on the fly. You know, if they'd gotten there and said, well, this is what we want to make and the snow's not going to work and we give up, then there's no learning taking place. But she talked very clearly about we had to look at what we had and make the changes as we went, and that's where the value educationally comes from, the whole process. And the kids go through, you know, the idea generation stage where they're making their clay model, and that all happens, but it's really on site that the most learning is going to occur. And then you got the whole dynamic of working in a team, which is different than what we would do in the classroom.
Of course. And Kaylee, you mentioned before that this was your first time doing the snow sculpture contest. What did you enjoy most about the day?
I think it was just like the opportunity to do it, where you could look around and realize that there's so many really good people competing, and they're making these wonderful things, and it's like, look what I'm making too. And it's just like the experience and the fact that I'd never done anything with snow or ice, and it's kind of like learning a new skill or learning how to throw pottery or anything along the lines. I kind of regret not having done it earlier, because now I'm a senior, I'm going to graduate, and I'm not going to be able to do it. But I know definitely like next winter I'm going to be trying to make something ridiculous in my front yard.
Well, that'll be good. Well, you can send pictures in. Yeah. Mr. Gladhill will say, check this out, right? Yeah. Well, good. That sounds awesome. Mr. Gladhill, anything else you want to tell us about the contest? People we need to thank? I mean,
well, certainly the whole staff at City Forest was great, from the people that moved the snow to making the snow, that worked in the chalet and were able to give the kids were provided with hot chocolate and popcorn during the day, as well as there was a fire going, so if they got cold they could go in and sit down. The facilities were just spectacular. It really worked out well. I'm looking forward to being able to do it again next year. We're already talking about making some changes and improvements off of this first year, and the staff that was down there was very good about seeing things and saying, hey, we could do this different, would that help you? And they were very forthcoming. They weren't waiting for us to ask, so it was really a nice dynamic. And then the Midland Area Community Foundation provides the funding for the trophies, and we're always very thankful for that as well.
Yeah, it's just one more example of the kind of thing that we couldn't do without our community partners, right? And it's, they're awesome. We really appreciate their support every year. Well, Kaylee, to finish up, why don't you tell us a little bit? You told us you're going to nursing, Saginaw Valley State next year. What are you excited about for the rest of the school year, your senior year?
I think I'm just kind of excited to see everything come to completion, because when I was younger, it's like you're always used to going elementary school, middle school, high school, but now that you're going to graduate from high school, it's like you're taking your first steps into the real world. It's like, I'm an adult now. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, to start to integrate into society and be like, I'm an adult, I can do stuff on my own, and just kind of be more grown up in that and be treated as a grown up.
Sure. Well, we're sure you're going to do a great job.
Thanks.
And we're appreciative of all the work you put into it, Dow High School, and good luck at Saginaw Valley. All right. Well, Mr. Gladhill and Kaylee, thank you very much for coming to talk about the snow sculpture contest. Sounds like it was a great event this year. All right. Well, that's all the time we have right now. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on MPS Today.